Thank you for joining me, Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. I want to read a passage and then we're going to turn to Eleni Allen on mother's boy chronic relationship issues with covert incest partners. Proverbs 11:5. The righteousness of the blameless will direct his way aright. But the wicked will fall by way of his own wickedness. The righteousness of the blameless will direct his paths aright, or direct his way aright. But the wicked will fall by his own wickedness. Righteousness, doing the right thing, being transparent, being honest, saying what you need and what you want, not doing things that are out of sync with what you're supposed to do, will bring maturity. That can also be a word used for characteristic maturity. Well, these characteristics will help your spirit to direct you in the right way. But the laziness of the wicked, the lazy mentality, the immoral, senseless behavior of the wicked will cause them to fall. Let's turn to Eleni Allen and we'll come back to that scripture later. Here's Eleni.
Hi, my name's Eleni Allen and today I would like to talk to you about mother enmeshment, covert incest and emotional incest. With enmeshment, this is where the parent uses the child as an extension of themselves and objectifies the child into fulfilling the needs of the parent, into filling the needs of the mother. If the mother needs companionship, she will use the child to fulfill the need to have her companionship, her sexuality, and her if she needs advice, she will be asking the child for advice and going and giving the child all of her or the father's intimate problems and intimate needs. She will or he will confide in the child the intimacy problems. So she's like using the child as an extension of themselves and objectifying the child to fulfill the needs, the parent's needs, not the child's. The child is not respected or validated or cared for because the child's place is to serve the needs of the parent, not the child. Kenneth Adams quotes that in his book, The Family, quote, when the family system is unbalanced, the children attempt to create the balance. So where you have just say a mother that is in a bad relationship or the father or the partner is absent emotionally or physically, the child will automatically want to fill that void into making the family balanced. And the mother will also rely on the child for her needs, and the child is more than willing to fulfill that void in the family. And this becomes then the child's place to become the mother's surrogate partner, to become or to parentify the child into caring for the mother. And even in cases like this as well, that the child can become the father figure to his siblings as well. And in some cases, the child then, when grows up into an adult, still remains that role, still keeps that role. And Patricia Love says that one of the signs of being a victim of covert incest is when the child grows up into the adult child, then they will experience chronic relationship issues in the future when they start to date, when they start to pull away from mother, even if they just pull away from mother a little bit just to start their own life, that they are unable to have a balanced relationship. Within that, the one of the signs of the chronic issues is that the adult child of the enmeshment is unable to commit fully to the new, just say like the new woman.
Interject there, viewers. This also goes for the mother as well. The mother has the same problem in committing to the relationship in a wholehearted way. She'll commit to relationship so far as it's convenient for her with her partner, and she'll chameleonize her position in the relationship. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, just like this child, the mother also cannot commit, cannot wholeheartedly commit, because she's enmeshed with the son, and that's where her value is. Her emotional values with the son are more important than that of the partner she's in a relationship with.
In his life, he's unable to commit because he's still bonded to mother. Whether he sees mother every day or whether he sees mother once a year, if this enmeshment has been ingrained into the child, then without there being an acknowledgement of what's happened, and without there being a grieving stage of being an enmeshed child, then that position will still stay. The adult child will still be kind of enmeshed with mother.
Application of this is, in my last relationship, I knew what covert emotional incest was, and I brought it to her attention, and I have to give her credit. She acknowledged that I was onto something. It caused a breakup. The problem with it was that the covert emotional incest relationship was the problem for the relationship, but it was also the solution for her in not fixing the problem, because the threat of me leaving as a result of her bond with the child and the dysfunction and infantile behaviour that came with that caused her to protect herself by defaulting towards the covert emotional incestual security, emotional security that brought to her, knowing that the son who lived with her was never going to leave her. And part of the difficulty that the son had was the threat that she'd met a reasonably good man who could offer her a future, and a happy one, and a healthy one, and a satisfying one, whereas they didn't even have a license, and all they seemed to do was go to work. They had nothing to show for anything. They were under the threat that if mum goes, what are we going to do? Now, these guys were young men. If mum goes, what are we going to do? So there was panic, there was alarmism, there was all sorts of dysfunction going on, intrusional behaviour, infantile tantrums type behaviour. Let's go back to Eleni.
So when there's that element of intimacy, the adult child then will feel pressure, will feel violated, and feel rage and feel angry. And this emotion initially belongs to mother.
So what Eleanor's saying there is there's a transferal. The mother's using the child to dump her hurt and wounding that has occurred to her through the breakdown of a relationship, and she's now using the child in an adult role. It's like taking a child into a X-rated movie. They're not supposed to be there. They're not allowed to be there. It's prohibited. But this is a living form of emotional incest, in the sense that the child's being brought into a realm of the mother's life that should only be shared with an adult, not a child. And I've seen this firsthand. I've seen what she's talking about firsthand.
Not to his partner. He projects all that anger and rage and violation onto his partner. Just use an example. If I asked my husband, oh, do you mind if you come home a couple of hours earlier? Because I won't be seeing you for a couple of days. And my husband would automatically respond defensively and angrily. You're trying to control me. You're not having this. You're not going to control me. And in reality, what I was doing is just asking just for us to connect. And maybe if he couldn't, then just to give an explanation and make the time up at another date. But also
interesting, because one of the problems I had with the last relationship was I even got to the stage where I said to her, who are you emotionally connecting with? Because it's not me. The relationship had become completely emotionally dead, which was a frustration for me, because I like to interact and catch up with what's going on and all the rest of it. But you couldn't do that with this woman, because she was emotionally connected to the son, and he was absorbing and being given that side of her life, which I despised, to be honest. She should have walked out of the relationship. She wasn't being responsible.
automatically he felt pressured, he felt violated, he felt that I was controlling him, inappropriately controlling him, whereas these emotions belonged to his mum. Now, virtually every day he would go and see his mum for hours on end. You know, it wasn't like he wasn't seeing mother. He was so enmeshed with mother. But if I asked for one simple thing, there would be an explosion. Whereas when mother asked for something, he would be riddled with guilt. He would be riddled with shame not to do anything that mother asked.
This is exactly what used to happen in my last relationship. The son got to the point where, well, he'd have to have these talks with his mother. He needed his mother. She was playing the role of a therapist, which I said she ought not to do, because it wasn't solving anything. As a matter of fact, I don't think there really was anything to be solved. I think it was just a pull for her attention. But when he asked for her attention, she dropped everything, and she enabled the manipulation and intensified it to the point where she couldn't even recognize that he was trying to disrupt our arrangements. And that's where I gave in very quickly. I wasn't going to tolerate that, and I didn't.
He was so enmeshed with mother. So within a relationship, it's going to be difficult for the enmeshed man or woman to connect with the partner, because the loyalties, because is with mum, even though that there is underneath that intense anger and rage and shame and guilt, that this is projected onto the partner. Because for the enmeshed person to admit that mother's been emotionally objectifying me, mother is abusing me, that it is a very, very, very hard emotion to actually release, because they've had a lifetime of illusion and denial. Not saying it can't be done. Yes, it can be done, but there has to be that recognition there. So within a relationship, there is a lot of projection that is given to the partner, and obviously that can trigger off the partner's other possibly her or his own buttons. So, and then it just becomes a big conflict. So we have here as well from Kenneth Adams from Silently Seduced: the more seductive, entrapping and violating a mother's relationship with her son is, the more likely that the son will displace anger meant for his mother onto other women. And this is the whole chronic problem in the relationship, that there is so much projection of emotion that is given to the partner. A lot of the emotion that is felt, the anger and the rage and the violation and the control that is felt and projected onto the partner, belongs to mother, not the partner.
And again, that goes to say the same for the mother with her partner. It's exactly the same thing. It's terrible. It's toxic. It's traumatizing.
And also, John Bradshaw says that with the child as well, when is conditioned from a very young age that children make gods of their parents. And in my own personal opinion,
parents make gods of their children, and some children are propped up as golden boys or golden girls, and the consequences of this on the child, whilst they're not recognisable while all this is going on later in life, they run into all sorts of troubles because they're too spoiled.
I believe that where the children make gods of their parents, that the enmeshed man or woman is entrapped in that time. They're entrapped in when they were 5, when they were 6 or 7. They're entrapped in that space and time of feeling that mum, that mum is like God. Oh, I must do what mum says. I feel guilty. I have to do what.
Again, you have to look at this from the partner to the mother's side, because this young man, 23-year-old young man, he was like a god to this girl, to this woman, and she looked up to him. With even the way she used to look at him, I was shocked sometimes with how she submitted to this young boy. It was horrible. It was disgraceful. But it was the way their family dynamic formed. It was just the way that it was. And what right did I have to try and change it? I brought it to light. I knew it was going to be a problem. But the way in which this guy deteriorated and went infantile was horrible. And she, the mother, was the enabler.
She says, I have to be what she wants me to be, because it's just too much shame and guilt will land on my shoulders. There's just too much. And within that as well, there's a dichotomy that goes on, because they do feel honoured and they do feel privileged to be mothers, primary everything, to be mothers, to be mother's companion, to be mother's even like kind of like sexual partner, but without the sex.
I can relate to that, because this young bloke tried to bail me up as treating his mother rudely, which was a total farce. The part that turned me off was the mother partly believed him, and it just got completely out of hand, because the bias is towards the covert emotional incest. So I want you to sort of mirror this in a way in which you can see what the partner of the mother's suffering with at the same time, because it's a mirror of each other.
There been any sexual touch? There's this underlying current that there is like a sexual undertone within that relationship, and the adult child does feel violated underneath those layers of feeling.
I just want to say, during some of these engagements between the mother and the son, it can be very ego-stroking and very lustful. You can sense the lust in the air when they're making these sarcastic, apparently funny exchanges and criticising and pulling down and all this stuff. But you can sense the lust, the emotional lust exchanging between the two. It's quite disgusting, to be honest.
Feeling honoured and privileged. The dichotomy is that the adult child does feel sexually violated, and as it's got here with
sexually violated, it may not be that at the time of the exchanges between the mother and the son. This possibly happens later, particularly if the mother's got a partner and the mother's now being intimate with the partner. That's when the son will feel extraordinarily violated and will start to manifest infantile behaviour and objective protestive behaviour.
Which, again, from the book The Family by John Bradshaw, that there's an honoured, that they feel very honoured and privileged, but they have the duality of feeling violated as well, because in my own personal opinion, I believe that feeling of the violation, the feeling of feeling entrapped, is the self, the real innate self, the core of us. That's screaming out. But the conditioned place that mother has given and conditioned and programmed the child into believing that they are feeling honoured and privileged. And also, as children, as John Bradshaw says, that we make gods of our parents. Right. I think that's it. Okay. Please leave a comment in the comments box. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you feel. I would love to hear your stories. And please, let's connect. Let's connect, because it's nothing worse, especially if you're a partner of an enmeshed man, or you are the enmeshed man or woman. It can be very difficult to connect with other people with this issue, because there's a very, people can think there's a very thin line between enmeshment and covert incest, and also just being close to your parent. And the way that I would rule out the difference between being close to your parent or being enmeshed is, does your relationship with your parents serve the needs of just your parents, or is the balance more for the child, the adult child? Because in my opinion, that being as a mother, that my main focus is my children. Even though that there is a balance in the relationship, there will always be that my children will always be above me, and I will always be there to cater for their needs more so than my own. And that's the difference. Does the relationship mainly focus on the child's needs or the parents' needs? And that's the question. If it's focused on the mother's needs, then that's an enmeshed relationship, and that's very unhealthy. So thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.
She was on the end of a covert emotional incest marriage, where her husband was married to her and in relationship with his mother. Please don't think this is uncommon. It's everywhere. The righteousness of the upright will deliver them. The righteousness of the blameless will direct his way aright. But the wicked of the wicked, well, I say wicked, we just went through. The righteousness of the blameless will direct his way aright, but the wicked will fall by his own wickedness. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.